Wife tested my allegiance on a work trip by putting me up with her friend's attractive sister. She wants to make things right immediately, and I was furious when I found out. Hello everyone, I'm in need of some guidance as I genuinely don't know how to handle this situation. You can boldly italicize, underline, and use a large capital C to describe me as clueless. My spouse, Amy, whose true name is not Amy, is 22 years old, and I am 23. We've been wed for more than 3 months. Amy is a student who started college at the age of 21. She has thus far finished 2 years. I am the only provider and earn a respectable living in the interim. I entered the workforce instead of going to college, and so far, things have gone well for me. During the summer, and on the weekends, Amy has a part-time job of roughly 15 hours a week at a coffee shop, largely for her personal expenses, though she does occasionally assist with groceries. Rent, utilities, groceries, and other household expenses are all paid for by me. Amy owes money on her education. But even if it means making sacrifices in other areas, my objective is to pay off as much of her debt as I can. My employer recently promoted me from a union position to management. This is where the narrative starts. I had to go to headquarters last week for a week of training that we call Kool-Aid classes. I had left on Sunday, but due to a shortage of available flights, I was unable to schedule a return flight in time to finish my training on Friday. My return flight was therefore slated to depart early on Saturday. Being a newlywed, I think Amy couldn't survive without me for a week, so she decided to come along. But I am the only one who makes purchases, and I stick to the spending plan that we established. I make sure to pay off my credit card in full before any interest is due on the one I use each month. I did the math on the cost of the extra flight, the cost of Amy's meals, and the cost of adding a room for another person. I next looked over the budget. There was just no space for these extra fees. We have several $1,000s set aside for emergencies. Additionally, we have started saving money for a down payment on a home. It's not much, just over $500 at this point, but you have to start somewhere. I sat down with Amy to talk about the budget because I wanted her support. She got irritated when I told her it wasn't covered by the budget. We wouldn't be able to pay it off, so I denied her request to charge it to my credit card. I made it clear that this was not an emergency when she suggested using the emergency fund. I told her that it wouldn't affect her that I would be gone for a few nights. I did provide a middle ground. Driving was an option, because the company headquarters is about 1,200 miles away, and some employees don't want to fly. My employer would have paid for the rental and gas expenses if I had leased a car. However, Amy stated that she would like to fly instead of drive for 2 days straight. Flying was not an option, therefore she had to stay behind. Amy gave me hugs and kisses and insisted that I promise to call her, even though she was upset that she couldn't go with me to the airport on Sunday. While I was away, everything was going smoothly. Monday was excellent. I met some other managers from different divisions of the company and developed some very useful contacts. I told my wife I'd be home shortly over a phone call at lunch after training and again before going to bed. Time travel on Wednesday morning, I was enjoying the free breakfast offered by the hotel. A woman came to my table and begged to have a seat as I was about to finish. I assured her I didn't mind since I had extra chairs after glancing around and noticing that every table was occupied. After finishing my meal, I got up and said, "Have a nice day," before leaving. "You're leaving already," she joked. I said that I had to leave for work. She was attractive, not a 10, but clearly above average, blonde, and perhaps 3 or 4 years older than me. Right then, I wasn't giving it any thought. But as I was having breakfast the following morning, the same woman came up to me and asked to come. This time, there were open tables, but before I could reply, she said, "You left yesterday before I could ask what your name was." She pulled out a chair and sat, even though I hadn't agreed. I felt uncomfortable. Amy, my spouse, is someone I cherish. I'm not at all interested in hanging out with another woman. My experience with women was limited. Amy was the second woman I had slept with in my 3 years as a girlfriend. Before I proposed, we dated for 18 months, and 6 months later we were married. I was married for over 3 months ago, as I mentioned earlier. I told the woman I had to go and wished her a good day when she asked for my name once more. I had my wedding band on full show on my hand the whole time. I debated informing Amy about my 2 encounters with this woman, but ultimately decided against it. I didn't say anything when I saw Amy at lunch, though. When I got back to the hotel later that afternoon, I stepped into the elevator and hit the door close button. Just as the doors were ready to close, they suddenly stopped. A hand materialized, and the female entered the elevator. With a big smile on her face, she said, "Look who it is. I still don't know your name," she remarked as the elevator for the 4th floor started to move. "Would you like to get to know me better by coming out for a drink with me?" Her makeup was subtle enough to accentuate her features without appearing overdone or meant to cover up flaws, and her hair looked amazing. I wasn't examining her cosmetics, though. She was waiting for a reply, grinning at me. The third-story elevator dinged open and the mechanism stopped, where my room was situated. I stepped outside and said, "I'm sorry, but I'm married," holding up my left hand to show her the gold band. "Nevertheless, I appreciate the invitation. Have a great evening." I dashed to my room along the hallway, not bothering to turn around in case she had followed. Upon reaching my door, I glanced down the hallway to make sure it was vacant. I made the decision to call Amy after I got into my room and inform her about the three experiences. Sincerity, in my opinion, is the best policy. I thought she would be angry, but she wasn't. "Is this woman beautiful than me?" was her first query. Yes, in all honesty, but that's not what I told Amy. Amy is much above average, but she's not a 10. While I'll never make the cover of a magazine, I don't think I'm particularly ugly, maybe a tad above average. I've dated some pretty girls previously, and this weird one was very cute. She was taller than Amy, if you get what I mean, and notably more top-heavy. Amy is more of the girl next door kind of cute. These two women were definitely not the same. This one was classier. I like Amy's brunette hairstyle because it's lengthy. To be honest, I wasn't in the least tempted by this woman. I told Amy I didn't know if the woman worked for my company when she inquired. Prior to our first meeting on Wednesday, I had never seen her before. I made the decision to skip breakfast at the hotel and have breakfast at the corporate cafeteria the following morning in order to avoid running into her again. I got up early on Friday morning and departed the motel. Prior to visiting the headquarters, I grabbed a cup of coffee from the self-service counter. I heard a voice I recognized say, "It would have been nice to have had a conversation to go with my drink last night," as I was shutting the lid on my cup. That same woman was beaming at me when I turned around. "I apologize if I came across as too forward," she said in her apology. "I thought we could talk for a little while as I've been here by myself for the past week. Look, I'm married, and I don't want to spend time with other women," I informed her. "Please don't bother to leave me alone." I rushed out of her way before she could respond. Although it was flattering, this time I was really irritated. I returned to the hotel that afternoon after completing my training, half expecting to be ambushed once more. But I made it to my room unscathed. After we spoke for a while on the phone, Amy asked me about my plans for the evening. On my last night in town, I told her I was going to a sports bar down the street. In order to have enough money for a nice steak dinner, I skipped a few meals. I entered the restaurant later and took a seat at the bar. I was going to have my steak, watch a baseball game on one of the numerous TVs while sipping a beer. That sounds reasonable, don't you think? I was mindlessly staring at the screen after ordering my dinner when I heard that voice, which I had grown accustomed to, say, "That looks good. Can I have a bite?" I turned to see her there, elegantly dressed and looking stunning. Clearly trying to get my attention, she flashed her enormous cleavage and wore a short dress with stockings. She asked how my day had gone and sat down before I could respond. I collected myself and told her, "You already know that I don't want to spend any more time with you. I'd prefer not to speak with you." "I don't give a damn about your name, it's Susan," she said, holding out her hand. I refrained from shaking it. I told her that all I wanted was for her to leave me alone and to eat my food in private. After making a small grimace, she laughed and said, "Just take a drink with me, I promise to act appropriately." "Unless you want me to," she declared. Grinning mischievously, I won't bite. She went to what I assumed was the bathroom, ordered a drink, and said she would be right back. I took out my wallet, paid for dinner with cash, and ran out the door. My steak was left sitting at the bar. I was displeased when I got back to the hotel for two reasons. First, I didn't get the rest of my steak. And second, because I didn't wait for the receipt to pay, I used my own money instead of the company's, leaving me without anything to submit for reimbursement. She would have returned by the time they got there, even though I might have asked for a box to be sent back to the hotel. I was given a subpar burger by the hotel, which I paid for to eat in my room. Before going to bed, I called Amy to inform her about the disastrous dinner. She said she was sorry, and that she would make me a really good lunch when I got home the next day. I have to admit that Amy makes a delicious meal. She does the cleaning, laundry, and cooking since she works a few hours a week. We exchanged our love and misses, chatted about what we could do this weekend, and then hung up. But I was mad when I went to bed. I lost out on a delicious steak. Not only was I upset with the woman who was bothering me, but I was also upset with myself for not standing up for myself more. I don't know why I didn't simply hold my ground, finish my steak, and move on. That evening, I had trouble sleeping. Amy greeted me with enthusiasm on Saturday morning when I got home. She hauled me into the bedroom for some fun before I could return to get my bags and unpack. Since we're still in the honeymoon phase, closeness occurs frequently. It's rare even to have sex in the afternoon. But let's just say I was quite welcome. I had been gone for a week. We cuddled in bed for about 10 minutes after that. She broke the silence by kissing me and told me how much she loved me while I was just enjoying our time together. She gave me another kiss and added, "I'm proud of you. I thought this was because I recently got a promotion at work." But she continued to tell me that I passed the test. Bewildered, I inquired, "What test?" "The test, you know," she continued, laughing. I told her that I didn't comprehend what she was saying. "That woman Susan, you passed the test with her," she said. I didn't know what to think. I crawled out from under Amy, propped up on my elbows, and pleaded with her to give me an explanation. With a somewhat self-satisfied smile, she said, "Susan was at your hotel because I asked her to be." Amy went on, "I wanted to test you because I know you're completely uninterested in her and I know she's prettier than me." I sat there, attempting to interpret her recent words. Amy leaned over to give me another kiss before getting out of bed and walking to the bathroom. I was not listening to her until she started speaking to me from within. This was a setup, not a test. I told her how much I disliked being put up like that. These were no ordinary tests. Amy came back into the bedroom, climbed onto the bed, and told me not to worry. "I love you since you gave your life." She tried to kiss me once more, but I pushed her away. I was upset. I started asking her questions. This woman, who was she? Why would she come to my hotel to put me to the test, and how did she know her? After a heated debate, I managed to get some information, but Amy got defensive and was now upset with me for being upset with her. Jessica, one of Amy's closest friends, was the sister of Susan. After I left for the airport on Sunday, Amy and Jessica seemed to hang together. Jessica advised me to think about what I would do if a stunning woman made her way up to me while traveling. They thought about it for a while before calling Susan. This ridiculous plan was hatched by the three of them. I questioned Amy about her lack of trust. She was adamant that she did. She went defensive once more when I asked why. If she trusted me, she felt the need to set me up. She held Jessica responsible for planting doubt seeds in her thoughts. I was furious at the time. I asked her where Susan had stayed and how she had gotten to the place I was visiting. Amy fell silent for a while. I think I started yelling when I raised my voice. Amy started to cry. More replies, more sobbing, me shouting. She was crying into her hands as I finally stormed out of the apartment, telling her that it wasn't her fault. After leaving, I slammed the door. Amy had covered Susan's expenses for the trip, her meals, a 4-night hotel stay, and even her daily rate of $100. We couldn't afford the advance purchase price of an airline ticket, a few meals, and $10 a night for a second person, so I told Amy she couldn't come with me. At over $150 per night, this was a 4-night, full-fare ticket. At what cost was all of this? Although I haven't done the math yet, I can tell you that the emergency fund is almost completely spent. The down payment fund will be moved to the emergency fund, which has already been exhausted since she allowed someone to put foolish thoughts into her head. This is because we need to have an emergency fund. I wanted to talk to someone, so I contacted my coworker Jacob after I left. It had been a few years after we started working together that Jacob moved into management 6 months ago. He persuaded me to visit. He invited me to join him and several of his friends who were over. After I explained what had happened to them, one of them implied that Amy had given me a terrible test. Although you must know what it is, I had never heard of it. They made fun of me for getting married so young. I thought that was the intended course of action. They told me that our bank accounts should be kept apart. Growing up, I believed that our assets were meant to be combined. Then they scolded me for having Amy on my credit card as an authorized user. All right. I can see how this may have been prevented. But since the horse has already departed, shutting the gate at this point is ineffective. I was told by one of the guys to watch some videos on YouTube. Once the steaks were cooked, we noticed a couple together. Unfortunately, the entire lunch was ruined because I was too miserable to eat. I am writing to you as he also instructed me to do. Money is all that matters in the end, and while I can repair my finances, that isn't the goal. I tried everything to help ease her fears, but she completely ignored me. Can I make it through this? I married Amy because we are so in love. She's always struck me as a lovely, compassionate, and kind woman, but I'm not sure. I now doubt her true identity in light of what she accomplished. With Amy, I've never established limits. Is it too late, or will it work to sit her down and set them now? That horse has already been put out. If boundaries are set later and are expected to hold, is it still possible to have a relationship with clear boundaries? I hope we can work this out with Amy. Amy started ringing my phone, but I didn't pay attention. My parents came next, and then hers. I disregarded the texts that I had received from her friends as well. At last, I hung up the phone. I didn't want to deal with any of them at this moment, especially after spending some time with Jacob. To clear things up, Jacob invited me to stay with him for a few days. I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on this. I'm not sure what other options I have. I need to take a deep breath before I choke and figure out how I got myself into this mess due to my lack of expertise. These are some of the things that must occur. 1. She won't go back to school until she pays this amount back. 2. Open distinct bank accounts. 3. She pays for her own education loans and won't take out any more as long as we're married. 4. I've already taken her off of my credit card and asked to be sent a new one with a different number. 5. She completely cuts off Jessica and Susan, so I'm thinking about ordering her to stop. I don't trust her to make the right choices right now. I texted Amy and our parents as soon as I got on my phone, telling them I was trying to figure out what to do. I informed Amy that I would take tomorrow off work due to illness and stop by early to catch up. I asked that everyone please leave me alone until then. I'm not responding to any texts or voicemails, but if you could give me a little prod in the right way, that would be really appreciated. I want to thank each and every one of you. I appreciate you seeing. Please click the notification bell to keep informed about more startling real-life tales that are happening nearby if you haven't already subscribed.